Okay, before I go into the watch list for Monday, March 13th, I'm going to give you a quick trading lesson here. And this is, I'm speaking to newer traders that are getting burned out there. A lot of people were talking about SNGX on Friday, right? And so out of the gate, it just takes off. These are 5-minute candles. So if you see this kind of volume, you say, wow, this thing's going to rip through three, and you just jump in, because I'm going to tell you right now, this is not a setup. This is what you call chasing, right? It's, ooh, this stock is running. I'm going to jump on board. And guess what? You do that. Sometimes you're going to make money, and and then you're going to think to yourself, hey, trading's easy, okay? But if you see this kind of volume in SNGX or any other stock, and it's already moved up a very significant amount, what can happen? So maybe you buy it up here thinking, oh, look at this volume. It's going to rip through three, and maybe you're the one that gets filled at 288. 5 minutes later, it's down in the 240s. What is that, a 20% haircut? Something like that? So I don't point this out to say, hey, if you took this, you're an idiot. I guess I'm trying to help new traders understand that you should be able to give detailed reasons for every trade you take. And if you can't I always tell people in our chat room, pretend there's a trader standing over your shoulder and you have to explain to them why you're getting ready to take an entry in detail. And if you can't do that, and trust me, hey, chasing because it's getting volume and I think it's going to rip through three, that's not a real reason. That's not a trader's reason. That's a gambler's reason. I'm going to give you an example here. I called PRKR in the room on Friday. Now, PRKR, I'll show you the daily chart in just a minute, but it gapped up a few days ago, or just ripped a few days ago in after hours, and then gapped up on big news, okay? And so then this was Friday's 5-minute chart. It opens here, sells off a little bit, volume starts to come in, and I called this, I said, hey, if this breaks 250, which is technically half numbers and whole numbers can be inflection points. I don't want anybody to misunderstand and think they always are. But if the rest of the chart set up and the rest of the story makes sense, then a half number or whole number can be an inflection point. So 250 was an inflection point. Why? Because just above was a red to green, which I think was 253 or 254, and then a high of day would have been 255. So that's what we call stacked catalyst. If this gets through the half, an inflection point, because you have catalyst just above, red to green, high of day, couple that, and in and of itself, that still isn't enough. Couple that with a huge gap up the other day and a huge run in after hours the day before that, okay, on news. So that makes this stock in play, and this 250 break gets you in right before the red to green, right before the high of day, and right before everybody and their mother piles in saying, here goes PRKR. And shorts start to cover too, the shorts that were successful on the daily chart. So to me, a call through 250 with catalyst above, recent news on the stock, and it's down for a couple days after the recent news is a perfect setup. Okay, that's a common sense call. And you see I made like $700 in a very short period of time on that thing. All right, so, and then here's the daily on PRKR. Let's do that right there. So you had the huge run. This would have been what, Tuesday? Then in after hours it was ripping, and so then you had the huge gap up on Wednesday, sold off. Thursday, now you've got a gap fill, but you hit the 8-day, and so the 250 break, as I just showed you, made perfect sense with catalysts above. And it went all the way to, from 251, it went to 295. It's a very nice percentage gain. But more importantly, the entry made sense, and you could explain it. You could give 2 or 3 reasons why, hey, I like this over 250, right? Not, it's running, I'm going to chase. I'm telling you guys, sometimes you'll get away with that, and all that's doing is reinforcing a terrible habit. How many times do you think you'll get away with chasing big volume, even if you get away with it sometimes? A lot of times it's going to cost you, and it's going to cost you bad, and you've learned nothing. So if you can't find setups on your own that you can explain, again, to an imaginary trader standing over your shoulder, stop trading until you can. All right, that's really, really important. It's one thing to make a bunch of money on a trade because you followed someone and they said, hey, I like the volume here, and you jump in. It's one thing to make some money, but you're not going to be a professional trader. You're not going to learn to trade. You just learn to chase. Terrible, terrible habit. Sometimes the guy calling it for you has enough followers to push it up a little more so you can sell real quickly, and then you don't get burned when the musical chair starts, right? When the music stops playing, the last man in is the one screwed. Actually, the last several hundred people in probably. So learn setups, learn intelligent entries. I can't emphasize that enough. I know sometimes I come off as a lecturer, but I hate seeing newer traders get burned when there's actually profitable, real, common sense setups that can make you money day after day after day. All right, I'm done with my lecture. Let's look at the SPY real quick. You know, it was kind of flagging here, gapped up a little bit. Well, actually, gapped up a little decent little gap on Friday, and then looked like it was just completely rolling back over, but a strong close, right? So to me, this daily pattern still holding up, still showing great strength, and still near all-time highs. So what's the list I've compiled for Monday? CERU had this gap up here on really big volume, and it went to $1.68. Then you've got a lower high, then you've got another lower high, and kind of a flag. It's starting to kind of break this flag pattern to the upside, and a little bit of extra volume. So I'm going to watch this one on Monday. You know, one potential catalyst would be 158, which would just be a break of Friday's high. I don't live and die by catalysts based on the daily chart, but that's one potential catalyst. Then you can look to the left and say, and then if it can get over this 160, then it might get up over the high of the big volume day, which would be 169. So you have stacked catalysts, right? If you get up here, you might take out this, and with a proper intraday setup, you might get a really nice percentage gain in a short period of time. That is always how I think when I trade, okay? PRKR, I just showed you this one. Let's go to 15-minute candles. I like, obviously I like that pop. It did kind of grind lower the rest of the day, but that was also a Friday afternoon. So it's not uncommon to see grinding lower. Definitely goes back on watch. Maybe we get another low risk setup like we did on Friday. CVRS, this one had a pop here and then really took off and made it all the way up to $1.44, settling in at $1.08 after about a week's worth of trading. I see in after hours this was trading at $1.30. I don't know how much volume. But this chart pattern, you got support in this area now. You had a huge run, so it's worth watching on Monday. That's CVRS. BLCM, you had a pop on big volume for this stock on Wednesday. It went from 1238 all the way to 1450 on an intraday basis. Then a lower high, closing above its open on Friday. Looks pretty interesting here when you go to 15s, right? There's the big pop. There's the lower high. There's the lower high, but there's a strong close. Certainly looks good over Friday's high. So if you, again, a potential catalyst would be like 1335. I'm going to go ahead and put that number in my notes. But it doesn't, again, I don't live and die by that. We'll watch it trade, see if it gives a setup. PTX, you had the gap up here, sold off, lower high, and now you kind of got almost equal lower highs around $4. If this gets through 4 on volume, maybe you'll take out the highs of the gap up day over 440. So that one goes on watch. CERC. This one just had a huge move on Friday, and I want to see if it's going to give any kind of follow-through day. Again, I'll only take that with a proper low-risk intraday setup. CATB. Huge move on Friday. I'll show you where I called this long. I called this long over this candle at $1.73 or $1.74. Worst case stop a dime below. It never did stop out. I'd love to tell you I caught all of this move. I didn't, but it certainly held the stop and made a huge move from $1.73 or $1.74 to $2.76. And it goes back on watch because it closed about in the middle of its range. Maybe it finds some buyers again on Monday or maybe sometime next week. Doesn't cost me anything to put it on a chart. OCRX had a huge 2-day move from like 60 cents all the way up to almost $2. And then you had an inside day on lower volume. Maybe this finds some bidders. Certainly be on watch all week. I don't know if Monday's too soon. I feel like it needs to come in a little more, but again, doesn't cost me anything to put it on a chart. This one's a little obscure, Abercrombie & Fitch ANF, but gapped up on 20 million shares, I think, on earnings a little over a week ago, and seems to have found support, right? You got a few green days in a row, so it's kind of interesting, maybe back through 12 on volume. Not in love with that one, but I'll have it on a chart. RNVA, you had this big run, like a 2.5-day run from a low of $1.60 all the way to $3.60. That's a huge move. And then it's been chopping around ever since. It's holding the 20-day so far, so it goes on a chart. And lastly, I have ELF, which gapped up, I think, on earnings a couple sessions ago. It would have been on Thursday, and then sold off again on Friday, touched the 8 and 20-day. This is in the beauty supply industry, I believe. And if you look at like ULTA, just ripped on Friday. So maybe this whole space catches catches some buyers. And with ELF after the gap up on earnings having a couple days lower, this one might be ready to turn back up as well. We will also add gappers to the watch list in the morning. I'll leave it at that. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I started to say weekend and Sunday at the same time. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. We'll see everybody on Monday.